The sun was sinking below the horizon, casting long shadows over the quiet, suburban street. The familiar hum of Austin's car filled the driveway. That's how this story began, and trust me, it's one you won't forget. If you're ready for a wild ride, hit the like button and stay with me till the end. I was spending the summer at my daughter Annie's house. But as the days passed, something strange was happening. I couldn't ignore the feelings I was developing for her husband, Austin. There was a magnetism there, a pull I tried to fight but couldn't. I stood in the kitchen, wooden spoon in hand, stirring the beef bourguignon I'd spent the whole afternoon preparing. The rich aroma filled the air, providing a small distraction from the tension building inside me. When I heard the front door open, I turned, smiling as Austin walked in. "You're home," I said, hoping to sound casual. "I made your favorite beef bourguignon." He raised an eyebrow. "Annie's favorite, you mean?" he corrected, though I noticed a hint of discomfort in his voice. I waved my hand, trying to laugh it off. "Same thing, right? You both enjoy it." I could sense his unease, and part of me felt a thrill in knowing I affected him this way. I didn't want to make him uncomfortable. I just wanted him to see me, to acknowledge that connection simmering between us. But he simply asked, "Where's Annie?" setting his briefcase on the counter. "Working late," I replied, turning back to the stove. "It's just us for dinner tonight." The room fell silent except for the gentle bubbling of the stew. I could feel his gaze on me, a mix of excitement and guilt swirling in my stomach. Was I crazy for wanting him to notice me like this? Let me know what you think in the comments. Over the next few weeks, I became bolder. I'd make small remarks about his appearance, find reasons to be near him. I could see how he tensed when I was close, or how his gaze would linger when he thought I wasn't looking. It was a dangerous game, one I couldn't seem to stop. One evening, with Annie out with friends, I took the chance to make dinner just for the two of us. I handed him a glass of wine, letting my fingers brush his just a second too long. I settled beside him on the couch, close enough to feel the tension between us. "Austin," I said softly, "I feel like you're holding back." "Why?" He took a sip of his wine, stalling. I could see the struggle in his eyes. "What makes you think I'm holding back, Caroline?" he asked, his voice guarded. I leaned closer. This, you know there's something here, Austin. You can't pretend forever." His jaw tightened. "I don't know what you want me to say." I reached out, touching his hand. "Be honest with yourself and with me." He sighed, meeting my gaze briefly before looking away. "I can't do this, Caroline." His voice was gentle but firm. Disappointment hit me hard. "You can't avoid this forever, Austin. Sooner or later, you'll have to face it." If you're as hooked as I am right now, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories like this one. Then one afternoon, Austin was working from home, his laptop set up on the kitchen table. I was outside by the pool, catching some sun and watching him through the window. He looked so tense, his brow furrowed. I waved him over, and after a moment he came outside, sitting on the lounger beside me. I reached over, my hand resting on his arm. "You look stressed," I said. "Let me help." I moved behind him, gently rubbing his shoulders, feeling the tension in his body melt. It was such an innocent gesture on the surface, but we both knew it wasn't. "Feels better, right?" I murmured, leaning closer. He nodded, his eyes closed. I saw the conflict in his expression. It was all over his face. Then in a hushed voice he said, "Caroline, we can't do this. Not here, not now." I smiled, trying to hide my disappointment. "Then where, Austin?" He stood up, his body trembling. I don't know. I need to think." Watching him walk away, I knew I was pushing him. But I also knew he felt the same pull. It was only a matter of time. Late one evening, with Annie out of town, the house was eerily quiet. I found Austin in the living room, a book in his lap, trying to avoid looking at me. I sat beside him, wearing a silk robe, and I could feel his eyes on me. "Austin," I whispered, "look at me." He hesitated, then finally did, struggling to keep his gaze steady. I leaned closer, feeling the intensity between us. "We can do what we want, Austin," I said softly. "No one has to know." The conflict was clear in his eyes, his loyalty clashing with the undeniable pull between us. I reached out, taking his hand. After a pause, he followed me upstairs. My heart was racing, both excited and terrified as we crossed that line together, knowing it was wrong but unable to deny it. If you've ever found yourself pulled towards something you knew was off limits, drop a comment. I want to hear your stories too. Afterward, as we lay together in the dim light, a wave of guilt washed over me. I knew this was a betrayal and I felt the weight of what we'd done. But there was also a strange feeling that it was meant to happen, like this was something neither of us could control. I looked over at Austin, whose expression showed the same mix of guilt, fear, and connection. "Don't regret this," I said seriously. "We can't undo it, we can only move forward." He nodded, taking my hand, and in that moment I knew he was with me for better or worse. And so our secret relationship began. We were always careful around Annie, trying to act normal, but in private we shared hidden moments. It was a dangerous game, one that could fall apart any second. But despite everything, the fear, the guilt, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. True happiness. I knew this wouldn't last forever. One day we'd have to face the consequences, but I didn't know when or how it would all fall apart. If you think you know what happens next, tell me in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for part 2.